Coming up today, we dive headfirst into the intriguing realms of energy and intuition and ask, is this complete woo-woo or is there something to it? As you know, I can be quite skeptical at times, but this is an area, energy and intuition, that I've long been interested in, and I'm hoping today's podcast is going to blow my mind and yours. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Welcome back to Zestology, diving headfirst today into the intriguing realms of energy and intuition with the one and only Dr. Dain Heer. Dr. Heer is a renowned author and change maker, and he is the co-creator of one of the biggest personal development companies in the world. He's a big deal. He's got loads of followers online. His course is called, his company is called Access Consciousness. And we're going to be talking about practical tools and strategies today to sort of get over limiting beliefs, tackle challenges head on, unlock your potential, all that sort of thing. But even more than that, I want to just explore energy and intuition. I am quite a left-brained person, and I love trusting my right brain more. I love trusting my intuition, and it's something I'm not very good at. And I think a lot of people involved in this sort of biohacking world, definitely the NLP world, we like to make things happen, and that often can make us a little bit controlling. So we're going to let it all go today and trust our energy and intuition with Dr. Dain Heer. Dr. Danger, how are you?
Awesome, Tony. How about you?
Really good, thanks. Yeah, we were just talking before we started recording about how people who get into NLP are very good at making things happen, but we like to control things. So I consider myself to be quite a left-brainer. Can you help me with that, with a bit of intuition today?
Oh, it would be my pleasure. You ask and I will do my best, you know?
Yeah.
And, it's funny. And I understand it really well, because I also lived my life trying to control everything. The difficulty is, and we'll expand into more, but the difficulty is when you have to control everything. In other words, when you have to be connected to everything that could occur. And also the difficulty is, and why do we do control? Because we don't want the problems to occur. So you have to be connected to every possible problem too. In other words, you have to hold all of that in your awareness. And what that creates is you have to keep your universe, your world, your reality so much smaller than it could be if you would actually believe in miracles again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my woo-woo alert just went off there at the end there.
I know. That's exactly why I said the word.
Yeah. So
pushing the buttons.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I love about doing a podcast about energy is energy. This came about because I didn't have any energy for a while. I got sort of chronic fatigue type symptoms. I spent loads of bed and I couldn't walk around. So on a very physical level, it's about, having a lot of vitality. But then the word energy encompasses so much more, doesn't it? And there's so much in terms of the energetic movements that surround us that we don't fully understand or we can't quantify with science. And that's why I love talking about this stuff, because it's all there, but it's just hard to explain.
Oh, so hard to explain. I mean, I do something called energetic synthesis of being. It's one of the classes I facilitate and show people how to work and play in this world to be more successful, personally, business-wise, family-wise. And it's exactly that. We don't understand it because it's not understandable. And what do I mean by that? It's not a mental process. It's not something that fits within the confines of logic. But if we can allow our head to explode a little bit, we realize there's a whole universe that defies logic. And once again, that's where all the miracles are. And so we could be walking, talking miracles if we weren't living in our heads trying to create a normal reality, a more successful version of those who came before us. And every one of us knows. And we've got to recognize that we know. That is the one thing we have, is our knowing. The difficulty is we've been taught to go against it continuously in favor of somebody else's fixed point of view. Because knowing has no fixed point of view. It's just like, okay, red flower, white flower. Okay, cool. I see you. But what we've learned to do is go against that knowing. And one of the questions I like to ask people to show them that they indeed do have awareness. And this awareness is energetic. It's not logical. But energy doesn't, awareness, logic are not mutually exclusive. You can use your energetic awareness to supplement your logical awareness and contribute to it. So they don't have to live in separate worlds. They can add to each other. But one of the things I like to ask people is, have you ever done something that you knew not to do? Did it turn out just as shitty as you knew it would?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do? Like, what we do is we logicize it in our heads. And if it checks the logical boxes, then of course it must be okay. But we don't live in a mechanistic world. We live in a world in which everything is interacting and changing all the time. And to the extent that we have to logicize everything and figure it out and control it, we have to make it linear. But nothing linear is got enough juice. It's not enthusing enough, It's mental, and we're trapped in our heads trying to create a life outside of our head. How well does that work?
So if we just rewind for a sec, I just want to explain to people who might not know. I know all about you, but just to explain to people what you do with Access Consciousness, and that, I think that will give a bit of context to what comes next and just how big it's got.
Yeah, good point. I forgot.
Don't worry, I'll do a little bit in the intro, but I hope it will as well,
Oh, that. Well, it's funny. I forget because I figure I know everybody. We all know each other, and I totally get that. So Access Consciousness is a way of accessing the knowing that you have and accessing the consciousness that's already within you to allow you to create a miraculous life and living that truly works for you. And it's based on the idea that the only time we ever create a difficulty in our life is when we function from unconsciousness, which is unawareness, or anti-consciousness, which is where we go against our awareness. And when I started 23 years ago, I've been part of co-creating it for the last 23 years. And when I started 23 years ago, we were in 4 countries and we had, I think, 12 facilitators. We're now in 176 countries and we have over 10,000 facilitators. And so, and for me, I came to it at a place where I had set a date to end my life because I was doing all the things everybody else said would work to be happy. And all I was really looking for was to be happy and have more ease with money. And I would get really light and think everything was working after a weekend workshop I'd just gone to. And then usually about 3 days later, on Wednesday, hump day, of course, would feel like the universe caved in on my head. And here I was, 30 years old. And for the first time in my 30 years, after experiencing all kinds of abuse and all kinds of things when I was growing up, but I'd still never given up hope. And I still remember the day where I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. Universe, you have 6 months. Either my life changes or I'm out of here. And I came across an ad for Access Consciousness. I had an hour and 15-minute session that I walked into and depressed and suicidal, wanting to get the heck out of here, and came out of it with a sense of gratitude for being alive. And I could feel it in my cells. And I was like, whoa. And because that wasn't something I understood, feeling something in your cells. I didn't understand things could change that fast. And it just changed. And I was like, holy crap, if this is possible and this can change this quickly, because I always knew it should be able to change that fast, but I never found anything that did it. And NLP was one of the ones that was closest. It was one of the things that I was doing.
Work as well.
Yeah, it's friggin' amazing.
Happy doing it for you though.
What's that?
You didn't have me facilitating it.
Hello, exactly. Where were you 23 years ago, man? So I was like, man, I want people to know this is possible. So I started doing it. And within a few months, I was like, this is so much more fun than chiropractic, which is what I was doing at the time. And I love chiropractic. Don't get me wrong. Just, it didn't, in my hands, it didn't create what I knew should be possible.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a great background. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because I've been thinking a lot about the intersection between, as we said before, intuition and energy, but also intuition and mindset and manifesting and actually achieving. And what I try to do with NLP, and as I said, I think a lot of NLPs aren't very good at the sort of right brain stuff, is to do some if you want, sort of fairly woo-woo right brain manifesting and consciousness stuff, and trying to access different states of consciousness with hypnosis, but also following it up with much more left brain sort of planning and actually getting it done. Does that sound similar to the sort of thing you do, or is it very different?
Both.
Yeah.
And it is, because anything that is true will work, and I love what you're talking about, because that's the element of let's do some stuff to get this done is one of the missing elements in so many things, and a lot of people are like, hi, I'm here. I changed my whole life and I don't want to do anything or change anything. And you're like, it doesn't work that way. We got to do the work. And we've also got to be willing to realize that, and this is why I'm so grateful we're having the conversation about merging these worlds, because that for me is where it's all at. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. There's our definition of consciousness and access. Okay. We actually have a definition of it. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. Yeah. So there's some amazing elements of having that left brain capacity. There's some amazing elements of having that right brain capacity. And yet, if you're going to make one or the other the source, you're cutting off a huge amount of what you're actually capable of.
Yeah. And that's difficult for me, actually, because I've had two careers for the last 15 years. Been working TV, and I've been doing the NLP guy on the side. And I left my TV job. And I thought, I'll focus a little bit more on the NLP stuff. And now I'm putting together this course. And actually, I'm thinking, well, so NLP is what I qualified in, and I trained to the highest level. But actually, I use all sorts of things. I use I've taken so many different trainings. I've trained in loads of different types of meditation and hypnosis. To pigeonhole it at NLP isn't really a very good description of what I actually do. So as you say, I mean, there's a phrase in NLP which says, do what works. And lots of different things work in different ways, don't they?
That really is. And our willingness to allow that, we live in a world where we've been taught that we have to come up with the answer. There is very few places in the world where there is one answer to anything, and especially in this realm. And, you were talking about, this idea of intuition. And so can I just point something out or ask you a question?
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah. Start accessing consciousness now.
Let's do this, baby. Yeah. So here you are, you're working with somebody. How do you know where to go? Is it a formula, or do you just know where to go?
Yeah, I guess it's intuition.
Yeah. And I would call it awareness. And I know it sounds like semantics, but intuition tends to be it is actually our awareness, because if we take it beyond intuition, we can have it not just in a situation involving me and somebody else, but me and the whole world I'm aware of, and us together. And so this is the whole thing also about energy for me, is I thought I didn't get energy. Like, really, I would be in some of the workshops I was doing, and especially some of the chiropractic workshops, because I used to do network chiropractic, which is very energetically oriented. And I would be there with my girlfriend at the time, who was one of these people. Have you ever been doing something, even in an NLP course, okay, where everybody else is like doing the process, whatever, and she would start going, right? And I'm looking at her going, what am I missing? Because I wasn't having the same experience. And I don't even know if she was actually having that same experience, but it was a way of validating that she had something going on that other people didn't, whatever. So I thought I didn't get energy at all. And so here I was in chiropractic seminars, and they'd say, "Hey, Dain, put your hand here. Do you feel that rapport?" And I'd be like, "Oh, yeah." No, I did not at all. And I had to fake my way through it, basically doing my best. And what I realized finally was, which is why I asked you the question about your intuition, your knowing, your awareness, which is how you're knowing where to go, was I realized it's something totally different than what my reference point for it was. And I realized, holy shit, we actually all have awareness. If we've ever known not to do something, we did it anyway, and it turned out just as badly as we knew it would, even though it checked the boxes, we already have awareness. Then what box are we trying to put it in? And what significance are we trying to attach to it? And how much are we also rejecting it because we can't define it and therefore can't control it?
Yeah.
And reject it.
Interrupting this podcast for one moment to remind you that my podcast partners today are BiOptimizers and Magnesium Breakthrough. If you would like a shortcut to better sleep, more energy, and a calmer, more stable mood, and who wouldn't want that, then you need to make sure you're supplementing with magnesium daily, but not any magnesium, because about 75% of us are magnesium deficient, but there are actually 7 unique forms of magnesium. You need to get all of them if you want to experience its calming, health-enhancing effects. That is why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by BiOptimizers. And I took one probably about an hour ago. I take it twice a day sometimes, maybe once so far today, but often twice a day. It's the only organic, that's important, full spectrum magnesium supplement that includes 7 unique forms of magnesium. And, I've been partnering with BiOptimizers for a couple of years now, and they've had a couple of months off the podcast, and they are now back, and I'm very pleased about that. So you can go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology. And even when they weren't partnering with me, I was still taking Magnesium Breakthrough. Go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology, and you can get a discount if you use Zestology10. And that works worldwide as well. If you're in the UK, you can go to the UK BiOptimizers site and use that same discount code, Zestology10. So better sleep, more energy, stronger bones, healthier blood pressure. For me, it helps me sleep at night and relax, and definitely get less inflamed as well. Use the code Zestology10 at the website magbreakthrough.com/zestology. Now back to the show. How can we access consciousness now? How can you give us a little taster of what you do with people? And I'm really fascinated to sort of delve in more deeply. I know it's obviously something that you do with all these people worldwide in all these different countries. It's hard to condense it down, but I'd love to give people a little flavor of what you do as well as benefit myself.
Sure. Let's do some easy things. Okay, so consciousness is awareness, and one of the things that we bring to people's awareness is the awareness of the everyday things that go on for all of us that people can't seem to get beyond or have as something that affects them, and they don't have the tools to change it. So a few things. One is to start asking questions instead of coming to conclusion, which is pretty simple on its surface, right? Questions, open-ended questions like, what else is possible I've never considered? What's right about me I'm not getting? What's right about this I'm not getting? One of my favorites, how does it get any better than this? Whenever something good happens or bad happens, you're opening the door for it to get greater. Yeah. What are the infinite possibilities here? What would it take to change this? If I were truly being me, how and who would I be in this situation? Okay, because a lot of us learn our behaviors, especially the unsuccessful behaviors, from other people. And we basically adopt their way of being in the world as though it's ours. We call them parents and friends. And to the extent that we embody and function from these energetic structures, if you will, or somebody else's point of view of reality, we limit our own choice and our own ability to be present in that moment, because it's like we are, I'm playing my dad's tape here. I'm playing my mom's tape here. So if I were truly being me here, who would I be? What would I be? What would I choose? And what choices do I have if I'm truly being me, that nobody else has. So that's one of about 8,000 tools. Okay. So just the idea of functioning from the question rather than the answer and the conclusion, because for any decision, any conclusion, any judgment you have, nothing that doesn't match that judgment can come into your awareness. We're that powerful. Our point of view creates our reality. Reality does not create our point of view. So questions allow you to expand from your limited point of view and your conclusion about how it has to be, and open the doors to other possibilities you never saw. That's one. Another great awareness that we found is that 98% of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions are things you're picking up from other people all the time. Like during the pandemic, for example, how much weird crap was being shared like a terrible game of telephone around the world, which was, and why does this happen? Because we're energetically aware. It's like if you've ever walked into a room and known your mate was sad, or how do you know? And people say, oh, it's body cues, it's facial expression. No, it's an energy. They're broadcasting. And so we're picking up on this all the time. How do you clear it? You want to ask for any thought, feeling, or emotion, any yuck, stuck, or what the F energy you have going on. You just go, who does this belong to? Is it mine? And if it lightens up at all, it's not yours. You know, how many days have you just been having the greatest day ever and you're driving to work, or you're, in the tube on the way to work, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, and you're like, oh, I'm so angry, or I'm so sad, or, oh man, God, I just lost hope. I don't know where my hope went. Well, you want to ask, who does that belong to? Because could be the guy sitting right next to you. Could be the person you just drove by on the street. Could be somebody across the world that's thinking about you. Yeah. And that's a practical use of the energetics. But if you'll do that for 3 days, if you ask, who does this belong to every thought, feeling, and emotion you have for 3 days, at the end of 3 days, you walk around like you're in a walking, talking meditation.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. Like, I go to any city in the world. I've done this. I did this the first time 23 years ago when I started, because I was battling with not only depression, but suicidal thoughts, as I previously talked about. And what would happen is, after I got this tool, because what would happen for me is I would wake up and cry and be just so depressed, and look over at the clock and to see how much time I had, before I had to go be a doctor and try to help make people's lives better. Weird, conglomeration there. And I got this tool. And the next time when it happened, I was like, okay, who does this belong to? And it friggin' disappeared. Like, this whole thing that felt like a whole world I couldn't get out of. Who does this belong to? I'm like, oh my God, it's not mine. Okay. So that's another perspective that can be really helpful. We even have a free app. It's called Access Consciousness. Who does this belong to? And it will remind you to do it. It explains it, etc. And then one of the other things that we have is a way of, and I've got a guy who does NET with me a lot, and he's actually started using this clearing statement to contribute to it. And by the way, all of Access is not a substitution for anything else. Use it to contribute, and if it's something specific from Access and you're using it, let people know it came from Access, like, hey, I got this from these weirdos. So that thing that all of us, it almost seems like the holy grail for people in personal development, of desiring to change a limited point of view as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have something called the clearing statement, and the short form for it is POC and POD. Now, the whole clearing statement sounds like gobbledygook. It's right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all 9 shorts, boys, poveds, and beyonds, which you're like, which we obviously don't have the time to go into right now. You could go to theclearingstatement.com and find it if you're interested in having, how it is when you're having a great day, and then all of a sudden it's like little pebbles start dropping on your head of stuff. Yeah. And it's like, okay, if you can handle it in the moment, you're good. But if you don't, it seems like it weighs on you after a while, and you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I just need to go to sleep. There's so many things, I don't even know what they are. Well, you can use this clearing statement. Every time your energy shifts from lightness, POC and POD, you don't even have to know what it is. And it stands for going back to the point of creation of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions immediately preceding your decision to do this. or the point of destruction. Because in order to create a limitation, we either create a limitation or we destroy what wasn't a limitation. You know what I mean? It's like we either create a limitation or we undo something that ends up in limitation. Pardon my English. So when that shows up, you just go pock and pod all that. Everything that is pock and pod. And it's been used around the world.
Know more about this. Fascinating.
Oh, it is amazing. It is. I call it the magic wand. And it is one of the coolest things. It's something I use every single day because I like to be happy. I like to have a sense of lightness. And so please go check it out. Once again, it's free to use. Like, go. So theclearingstatement.com is where you can find that. And then what's the other thing is just about, one of the things that is really helpful is to recognize that what's true for us makes us lighter. A lie for us will always make us heavier. And so, what is lightness? What is heaviness? That's a personal individual thing that you learn over time after you have the awareness. But lightness is kind of like you and I talking right now. It's like, hey, everything's cool. Hi. Or when you go out in nature, or when you hug somebody you really love and care about, it's like, oh, it's so good, right? Yeah. That sense of space, not contraction. Heaviness is more like that contraction. Like, think about watching a political debate, for example, or thinking of the word politics. It's like you kind of like, So what's true for us always makes us lighter. The extent to which we choose what's lighter for us, what that shows up as over time is more lightness as our lives. And we need to recognize that if we're going to do something and it's really heavy, we need to start asking some questions like, what's really going on here? What am I aware of that I'm not acknowledging? Yeah. What is being shown to me here? Do I truly desire to do this? And then also ask yourself, okay, what is my life going to be like in 5 years if I choose this? Now, you're not trying to figure it out. And the reason I say 5 years is specifically because your mind can't fathom that. And some people try to reject it because of that, but this is the gift of it. So and you just want to ask and just be real light about it. And if you don't get anything, no problem. You're no worse off. You took a nanosecond out of your life to ask the question. But what you're looking for is, will my life be more like this, like more expansive, more space, or will it be more like this, more contracted, less space? Okay. What will my life be like in 5 years if I choose this? Let me give you an example of several of these things, light, heavy, et cetera. Back right before Access, I had a girlfriend. We'd been together for 3 years. And I asked her to marry me. Okay. Now, from the moment of asking her, the heaviness in my world was really actually before asking her. There was so much heaviness around it. Now, we all know people who have gotten into or stayed in relationships, who've gotten married, stayed in marriages, et cetera, that everybody in the world knows it's heavy for them and their partner. But why do we do that? Because we're trying to do the checkbox rather than the awareness box of what am I aware of? And if it makes me this heavy, and especially if it continuously makes me this heavy, this isn't something that's contributing to me. And so what happened was I could not live with the heaviness anymore. I just couldn't do it. And so I asked the question, okay, had I had the question before asking her, I might have made a different choice. But since I had the question after asking her, I went, okay, what will my life be like in 5 years if I get married to her? What will my life be like if I don't? And I know even, talking about relationship, marriage, and not doing it can push a lot of people's buttons, but that's just our stuff around that, and it can be changed. But when I asked that, what will my life be like if I get married? I was like, wow, I don't know if I'll even be here in 5 years. And that was a surprise to me. In other words, it got so contracted, and I'd never done this before. I didn't think I got energy. And now I show people how to actually work with it to create, I don't want to say healing, but facilitate change in people's bodies and their lives. So if you're out there thinking, I don't get energy, you know what? I totally understand. There are lots of resources out there that will show you that you actually can, and it may not be what you thought. And it doesn't have the significance that most people try to place on it. because people tend to try to make it significant rather than have the lightness that it is. So when I asked, what would my life be like in 5 years if I choose to not do this, there was this sense of lightness that almost made me cry. So,
wow, that's a great question. I'm gonna use that today. I'm gonna go out now. And one of the things I like to do with intuition is I often find that I'll work so hard, sort of tapping, hunched over the laptop for hours at the time, and I've worked pretty hard today. And then once the work is finished, I'll consciously just tap into the unconscious mind, and that requires something like going to the gym or going to meet friends or just going for a long walk. But I can't listen to podcasts or anything like that, and sort of setting the intention to think about the solution to a podcast, or maybe to think about a question like that. What would my life be like in 5 years' time if I made this decision or that? And then just get on with it. You don't have to think about it. Maybe the answer will come so much quicker if you just sort of give it the space. And that's definitely, for me, that's intuition. And it's also, it's a great way to problem solve or come up with the answer to questions and that sort of thing as well.
And that thing of, and you start to realize, and just asking some of these questions a little bit and using some of these tools a little bit, you start to realize that, wow, I can actually relax a lot more, because there's a lot of things that are contributing to me, a lot of things, a lot of people. And you realize that the problem, if we relax, think how much us trying to focus on it and figure it out. And that's fine. Do that for a little bit and see if it gets you somewhere. Okay. Because sometimes it will. Sometimes you need to do that. Once again, let's not reject. Let's just include more. Yeah. Sometimes it'll get you somewhere, but after 20 minutes to an hour of that, if you haven't gotten significantly more space and further along, then just go, okay, I'm leaving this till tomorrow.
It's needed. Yeah.
I'm going to go have a beer. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get a massage, whatever. I'm going to go hug a tree. I don't know. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to go to a nightclub, whatever it is, do something to get away from it, because your awareness is always working in the background. Yeah. And it's our awareness that will show us the possibility within what we call our problems.
Dr. Dain, we've got to go, but just before we finish, what is one book you would recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality? So one book that's had an impact on you and one tip for living with more energy.
Well, okay, I'm going to go for 2 books because I'm not a big fan of rules. One is Being You, Changing the World. And yes, I did write it, but writing it changed my world. So and another one is actually Stranger in a Strange Land. It's if you want to see some of what we might actually be capable of, great book, very old. It's by Robert Heinlein. And then the second question was
living with more energy and vitality.
Get out of judgment of you and everybody else. And if you're doing it, just stop and pock and pod that shit. You don't need it. Yeah. It's not serving you, and you're greater than that.
So my takeaways from this conversation are, firstly, I'm going to go and check out what was the POC and Pod website called?
Theclearingstatement.com.
Clearingstatement.com. Then I'm going to go and take some time out. It's the end of my working day now. And I'm going to go and ask myself, I told you that we've just been living in Thailand. And I'm sort of thinking, was it the right decision to come home? Mm-hmm. What a great day here in London. So there's some big life decisions. And that question that you came up with, what would my life be like in 5 years' time if I did this? And I'm going to notice how that feels.
Yeah.
And then,
Can I just add one more thing and that thing about living in Thailand, et cetera? Yeah. What if let's ask this also. What are the infinite possibilities? Not just for living in Thailand or London, but what are the infinite possibilities? Like, what else is possible that would really be wonderful? You could do 3 months in each location but asking that question, only you between you and the world around you, you and the consciousness of the world. But what are the infinite possibilities? And see what shows up that's greater than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. I will. And then the final question is, can I make my Zoom background as good as Dr. Dain's? Because yours is No, this is mostly an audio podcast, but is that a real background there?
Yep, that's my backyard. Here, let me get out of the way. You can see. That's my backyard.
I actually just want to be there. It's beautiful.
Come on over. Hey, if you do come, I'll make you a margarita.
That's great.
Let me know. Thank you.
I was thinking, is that like a sort of superimposed background? But it's real. It's your backyard.
Yep, that's my backyard. And oftentimes I have my white peacock he lives in the neighborhood and spends most of his time here. He often, enters the shot, he's like, hey, or in his version.
It's like a tropical paradise out there for anyone who's listening rather than watching. It's beautiful. Dr. Dain, where can people find more about you and the access statement and everything else?
Okay, so we talked about theclearingstatement.com. You can also go to drdainheer.com, which is where there are a lot of resources and free things. You can go to my YouTube channel. I've got hundreds of videos of free tools. And also you can go to beingyoubook.com and download a free audio of the first chapter of the Being You book. And if you're somebody who's like, I need some help right now, just listen to that, see what changes. And that also is my gift. So have fun playing.
Awesome. Hey, listen, it's great to talk. Really enjoyed it. And thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Tony.
Thanks again to Dr. Dain, and thank you for listening. And remember, if you'd like a shortcut to better sleep, more energy, and a calmer, more stable mood, then you should make sure you are supplementing with magnesium daily. And about 75% of people are magnesium deficient. This deficiency can lead to higher levels of anxiety, irritability, trouble sleeping, and low energy. It can even contribute, I definitely get this, to foot and leg cramps while you sleep. And if you've got that 10 minutes before going to sleep, it's not good. You need an extra magnesium breakthrough. At that point, if you go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology, you can use the promo code zestology10. And there are often on that page amazing promos and gifts with purchases if you get more than one bottle at once. And I tend to get a few just to stock up. When I went to Thailand for 3 months, I took a lot of it. So go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology. Order now. Thank you for listening, as always, and see you next week.